Well, meanwhile, House Democrats do not appear to be making progress with new closed-door testimonies today. Acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney will not show up to testify in defiance of a subpoena. The president said he instructed Mulvaney not to go to Capitol Hill because his appearance would give credibility to what he called a corrupt witch hunt. Well, that was one of many comments that the president made to reporters about the impeachment inquiry this morning. He also suggested that he might release the transcript of an additional call that he made to the Ukrainian president.
Now thereafter, I have a second call, what nobody knew about, and I guess they want that call to be produced also. You've heard that, John. So I have a second call. I had a second call with the president, which actually I believe came before this one, and now they all want that one, and if they want it, I'll give it to them. I haven't seen it recently, but I'll give it to them. But I had a call before this one with the president of Ukraine. I understand they'd like it, and I have no problem giving it to them.
I want to bring in CBS News White House correspondent Paula Reid, who joins me now. Paula, what do we know about the second call with Ukraine's leader and what the president just alluded to there? Very surprising to hear him say that.
It was pretty surprising, Rena. Now, we're talking about two separate phone calls. There's, of course, the call that is at the center of this impeachment inquiry. That's a call that took place over the summer where the president appeared to be pressuring his counterpart to investigate his political rival, former Vice President Joe Biden. But now he's referring to a second call, a call that happened in April, around the time that Zelensky was elected, and he called him to congratulate him. And there are reports that on this call, President Trump raised the issue of corruption in the country, but otherwise little is really publicly known about the details of that first call. Now, as you just heard the president say, he said, look, he may be willing to release a partial record of that call as well. He has no problem with that, but it remains to be seen if they're actually going to do that. He's not the first person to float the idea of releasing some sort of record of that call, but so far the White House has not been willing to do that.
You know, Paul, the whistleblower's lawyer sent this cease and desist letter to the White House counsel. The letter says that the president's rhetoric, quote, and I'm quoting here, may endanger their lives and the lives of their family, but that didn't stop the president from lashing out again at the whistleblower and their lawyer. Here's what the president said this morning.
My phone call was perfect. He made it sound bad. That's why I had to release. Now, so the whistleblower is a disgrace to our country, a disgrace. And the whistleblower, because of that, should be revealed. And his lawyer, who said the worst things possible 2 years ago, he should be sued. And maybe for treason, but he should be sued. His lawyer is a disgrace.
Paul, why do you think it is that the president is just so focused on the credibility of the whistleblower and even threatening to reveal their identity?
Well, the threats are made because the president can threaten this individual. Look, let's think about what a whistleblower is. Whistleblowers are protected by the law. The argument is that we want people to be able to come forward with any damaging or questionable information without fearing retaliation, without being afraid they're going to be fired or threatened or suffer somehow. And here, this whistleblower went through the whistleblower channels to bring these allegations so that they could be investigated. And it's pretty clear, Rena, the evidence has largely supported the whistleblower's complaint. At least 5 top White House officials and the partial record released by the White House all support the claims that this whistleblower made. So really, the president's only strategy here is to sow doubt, and he does that in many ways. He tries to make false claims about the whistleblower, about the complaint, and so all he can really do now is try to undercut the credibility and sow doubt. And it's a lot easier to do if you actually have a name, if you have a person, then you can sort of dig through their background, try to find things to support your point that, despite the overwhelming evidence supporting the whistleblower's complaint, that somehow this person's intent was not on the up and up. And that appears to be the new White House strategy. Attack the whistleblower's intent, because arguably you can no longer really attack the whistleblower's complaint itself.
And Paula, also making news, the president's daughter, Ivanka, was asked about the impeachment inquiry. She's in Morocco today and called an effort to undo the 2016 election. But here's what she said about when she was actually asked about the whistleblower.
I don't view the whistleblower as it shouldn't be a substantive part of the conversation, because this is a third party who was not privy to the call and did not have firsthand information. So that is what was the catalyst for all of this discussion. But to me, it's not particularly relevant.
What do you make, Paul, of what she said there?
It's pretty surprising, Rena, because here she's breaking with her father and her brother. Her father has repeatedly called for the whistleblower to come forward or for the media to name the whistleblower. And of course, her brother, Donald Trump Jr., has retweeted suggestions about exactly who the whistleblower is. So for her to come out and say that the identity isn't really relevant, that is a significant break. But she was still in many ways on message because she was pivoting, as I think we're seeing the whole White House doing, from the whistleblower's identity to the intent and what was the reason that this person brought these allegations forward. So it is surprising. This is someone, of course, the president relies on quite extensively for her opinion and her counsel. So it'll be interesting to see if he follows suit.
You know, the president addressed the testimonies and the inquiry that have actually occurred so far. Here's what he had to say.
Every one of those people testified absolutely fine for me. They've gone out and they've gone out of their way to find the people that hate Donald Trump, President Trump, the most. They put him up there. Everybody's been absolutely fine.
White House officials you talked to, Paula, I'm not sure if you were able to hear that bite there. The president says that the testimonies are absolutely fine. So does that mean that the White House is not concerned about next week's public hearings? Do they feel confident going into that?
No, it's so not fine. You have 5 top White House officials suggesting there was indeed a quid pro quo between the President of the United States and his Ukrainian counterpart. This is exactly the opposite of what the president and many of his allies have been trying to argue. The president has repeatedly tweeted that there was no quid pro quo. At one point, he modified that defense to suggest that there was no quo, and therefore you can't have a quid pro quo. But when you have 5 top White House officials, Rena, coming out and contradicting your story, that is not fine in terms of a robust defense in the face of impeachment hearings. So right now it seems that the president's strategy, and he is the lead strategist here in terms of combating Democrats who want to oust him from office, is just to try to sow doubt in many instances, just to say things that simply aren't true and insist that everything is fine, and anyone who's come out to make these claims, even if they're supported by evidence, that the people making these claims don't support him, that they're, quote, never Trumpers. That is just not true. There is no evidence to suggest that these 5 officials are, quote, never Trumpers. And it's not just one person we're relying on here. There are 5 different officials who've all given pretty consistent stories that support the original whistleblower's complaint.
So, you know, Paula, another thing that was brought up was the president was asked about whether he wanted Attorney General William Barr to hold a press conference saying that he did nothing wrong on the Ukraine call. What did he say? How does that square with your reporting?
It's very interesting. I'm looking at the transcript right now because he's insisting that he never asked William Barr to hold a press conference. But our reporting is not that the president called up William Barr and asked him to have a press conference. It's that the president wanted his attorney general to come out and exonerate him, to give a public statement saying that the president had done nothing illegal in that July call with the leader of Ukraine. But there is no reporting to indicate that the president directly called the attorney general. He's trying to do a little semantic game here. Now, yesterday, he also said on Twitter that the attorney general denied this. Rena, that is not true. The Attorney General of the United States has not said anything about the president's call with the leader of Ukraine since the White House released that partial record. Even the 2 statements that came out of the Justice Department, Rena, and this is very unusual, both statements were attributable to a spokesman, not to the Attorney General. It appears that Attorney General William Barr, who has come out to defend the president, he's been a pretty loyal Attorney General, defended the president in the Mueller investigation and in other matters, he's not willing to touch the Ukraine call. So the president insisted today that if he asked Barr to do a press conference, he would have done it. But all the evidence is to the contrary. It appears that the Attorney General does not want to say anything publicly about the president's call with Ukraine.
All right, Paula, I want to thank you. It was quite a talk that the president gave, you know, answering a lot of questions there before he left. A host of issues.
It's true.
A host of issues, right, including opioids.
Absolutely, and it's significant because so far this week, he blew past us one day. Another day, he only came over and answered a handful of questions. And because we don't get briefings here at the White House, those opportunities to ask the president questions directly, they are very significant.
All right, Paula Reid, I want to thank you so much. Hope you're not off on Wednesday and Friday of next week.
I'll be here.
All right, Paula. Thank you very much for joining us.